2 days, T-2 to get the frickin' motorcycle course done. Hopefully it won't rain on Wednesday and I'll get it done. But the show must go on, and I got to still keep up to my, my work, so to speak, I guess. So I took down a bunch of notes this time. Yeah, see how much more organized I'm getting? I got like this loose piece of paper with writing on it. Now, the big thing is, can I decode my own handwriting? I don't know where to start here. I guess I'll start on, I don't have a lot here, but it's ongoing stuff, so we'll keep it going. So I guess I'll start with the 50 million, I believe it was 50 million, US aid going to Lebanon, basically buying weapons for somebody. Not exactly sure who yet. It's obviously not going to be going to Hezbollah because they're sided with the Iranians and whatever, and they're anti-Israel, so that type of thing. So I do know that Lebanon is a bit of a tug-of-war there, what's going on between the Communist Lebanese Army, which works with the Syrian Arab Army, and Hezbollah as well. They work on one side, and then of course I guess you got other factions on the other side. So who's in Lebanon? That would be getting money from the U.S. to get the weapons. I don't know. And I guess there's things like artillery guns and stuff like that, because I guess not enough weapons have fallen into the hands of ISIS yet, so you're going to put more in there, right? So that type of thing. So that's what's going on there. And it's a Russian name, and like most Russian names, I can't pronounce it. It is the Chief of Staff, Sergei Lavinov, if I said it right. Basically, this guy didn't want to become an oligarch or whatever, and he said, "Fire me after so many years," and stuff like that. So Putin decided to do that, and Putin gave him praise and stuff like that. And this guy again is one of Chief of Staff, so he's military advisor and stuff like that, and pretty high up there. So again, a completely different approach to Obama, where Obama has basically fired more U.S. personnel than any president in history, and pretty much basically weeded the garden and did a complete purge of the military is what Obama done. Now Putin has been doing that too. And a little while back, I was talking about how they got rid of men that would not push the button. So the Russians they're serious when it comes to when it goes down. They know at some point this is going to go down, so they need the most dedicated guys possible. But you got to watch out, because that's where you get your psychos as well. Yeah, yes, I'll push button. Today? We push it today? How about tomorrow? We do it tomorrow. Tomorrow afternoon. Yes, we have nuclear war now. Can we do it today? It's like, no, you have to wait till the war starts. Why wait? It's like, that's the problem when you get these guys that are a little bit over-eager to please, comrade. Yeah. Comrade, commandant. Yeah. Next to that, Israeli rocket systems are going to Vietnam. They're putting them in place with the threat that they're going to take out North Korean, if you know where Vietnam is, it's a long way from North Korea, and their goal is to take out North Korean missiles and stuff like that, and missile sites. That means their missiles have to cross Chinese airspace. Think of how insane that is. Now, the weird thing about Vietnam is just the idea that it wasn't all that long ago that the U.S. was blowing the shitballs out of Vietnam. But now they're the best thing since sliced bread, right? So you see how these allies change and stuff like that. There is no real loyalty or real principle on U.S. foreign policy. It's who's the best for us at the time, right? Because usually once you declare a country an enemy and you go to war with them, you pretty much keep them as an enemy. Like, you know what I mean? Like that. That's you might resume ties, but you don't start giving them military aid and stuff like that. And of course, why would Israeli rockets be going to Vietnam, right? Why is Israel even involved in this, right? So again, war is a racket. That's the main theme. So that's something to definitely keep on. Now, the Russians have also, just got to watch where I'm walking so I don't get smucked by something, got warships in the Mediterranean, but they've now got these missiles on the warships. I can't remember the exact designation of the missile. And like most Russian missiles, they're very versatile in the sense of we can blow the crap balls out of something, or we can really blow the crap balls out of something. So nuclear, non-nuclear, that type of thing. They obviously have this in the Mediterranean with all the U.S. warships going back and forth, provoking Russia. Again, there is no case for U.S. warships to be in the Mediterranean. There really is no case. They're not going to... ISIS isn't floating around in little rowboats or anything like that. And, there's really no case for it. So it is clearly just to keep provoking in the Mediterranean. So the Russians are definitely stepping up their grade here and saying, okay, yes, but our warships may possibly have nukes on them. And we know that you've got, again, in the Crimea, you got Topol-Ms coming in a whole, and I'll get to the Ukraine. I'll save the Ukraine for the last because there's so much to cover in Ukraine this time. Again, to keep up with it all. But yeah, so that's definitely a statement when your warships, the cruise missiles, are nuclear capable. That's definitely a statement. So the Russians are saying, yes, you can come here, but it won't work out well for you. So that type of thing. Next to that, the military-industrial complex in the States, surprise, surprise, are asking for more funding. They need more funding. Well, here's the thing, okay? You have a lot of the U.S. military that is in crisis and stuff. Now, if they, who are they funding for? Are they funding for the U.S. military or funding everybody else? They pick one, right? So if the U.S. wasn't funding all, giving Vietnam missiles and giving South Korea and all these, the Philippines, if they weren't arming up everybody there, they would have more than enough for their own military. They will spread themselves, well, they already have kind of spread themselves too thin in the South Pacific, in the South China Sea and all that. But it's kind of like this, this idea of we're going to arm everybody, but everybody's going to be armed so thinly. It looks like a massive buildup, but when you look at it from a strategic point of view, yes, it is a massive buildup, but everybody is really spread apart. If you have, missile system here and then 400 miles away, you have another missile system, you're really starting to spread yourself thin. You might have an overlap there, but you have a lot of gaps for the enemy to come in and take out your systems. And if they hit one system at a time kind of thing, it'll crumble faster than it can move. So I think that's how the Russians are going to play it, and I think that's definitely how the Chinese are going to play it. I still say the Chinese are going to most likely do an island hopping war when they do get into it, and the rhetoric from the Chinese in the past 2 weeks has been pretty stepping up and getting pretty, there's going to be a lot more rhetoric before they just say, fuck off or we're going to war. There's a lot more that's going to happen. We know this. But there's a lot of accidental things that can happen too. And again, the more this stuff is spread out, the more potential for a Kursk-style incident can happen, right? So these are the things that we have to watch out for. Next to that, yeah, so South Korea has also said that they're getting ready for their missile sites to take out all the North Korean possible missile sites. Now, North Korea really isn't that much of a threat. As much as they don't really have anything that can get outside their borders very far. The South Korea, yes, that's a different statement altogether. Yes, they can go at it with South Korea. I still would say, if everything was left alone just between North Korea and South Korea, I still say with the military technology difference, South Korea would probably wipe the map with North Korea in the long run, not without extremely heavy losses. The North Koreans are deadly on their border because they have a lot of artillery, they got a lot of manpower, that type of thing. So you'll incur losses. There's no doubt about that. Because things about the North Koreans is they don't stay put. They still use the old rush the position communist ideology that they're not like the Taliban or something that hides up in the hillsides with the caves, do hit and run tactics. I mean, they'll do some of that stuff. They still have that old Soviet, rush the position, which really does come back to the Germans in World War II with their Blitzkrieg. So the Russian spin-off of the Blitzkrieg, basically in the 1950s, of basically you have 10 men, you might lose 9 of them, but by the time those guys go to reload, you're right on top of them and jabbing them with your bayonet. They still have that kind of mentality in a lot of their stuff. Their special forces guys might be a little bit more modern, but they don't have a lot of special forces guys. So that said, yeah, North Korea would probably take a hell of a pounding for a day or two, but they would be wasting through North Korean troops so fast that any of the gains that they would get, they would lose on the second, third, fourth, fifth offensive. They're just not going to have, it'll be a blaze of glory for the North Koreans for sure. Yeah, they definitely won't be able to take the North Koreans in that. But then again, it also depends on how the South Koreans fight. If they fight more with U.S. tactics and NATO tactics, which that's what they would be training with, they're probably going to be more of a defensive tactics, obviously, because of where they are. They can't retreat anywhere. Technically, the North Koreans, if they make well with the Chinese, they could retreat to China. I mean, that's where they came from kind of in the first place. That whole regime comes in from China, when you really track the history of it. Yes, North Koreans are not Chinese, I know that, but the thing is that North Korea wasn't a communist country until China decided it was a communist country. You know what I mean? That type of thing. You know, I mean, there was a little bit of, I mean, you can look at the history, like there was a little bit of give and take there, sure, like they didn't really put up that much of a fight, they just kind of came in and whatever, ethnically cleansed anybody that didn't agree with the communist utopia. You know, so that's kind of what happened with North Korea, and then it just turned into this nightmarish of a place. The poor people there, and again, is like, can you even help the people there? How brainwashed are they? Like, you know what I mean? Like, they're just so far gone that you know, like these people are really living in some, like you couldn't even take them out of the country that, like, in high numbers. When North Korean people make it, you know, across the landmines or whatever and get out, a lot of times when they get into, if they go to the United States or they go maybe here, Canada, they don't know what to do because their whole life, their government has told them every single aspect of life how to live. So they don't know how to live. And they'd probably go crazy in a place like this because it'd be like an ant getting out of an ant colony. It's like, what do I do? You know, it's like, you know, like it's kind of, how else would you, the analogy of somebody who goes into prison as a teenager comes out as an 85-year-old man. What kind of world is he going to know? Like, he's going to be asking permission to go to the bathroom. You know what I mean? Like, he's not going to know what to do. He's going to be a fish out of water. So, like, can you really help these people? I don't know. But you could, if you could get rid of Kim Jong-un and, you know, at least get food to the people would be nice. But I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon. But as far as South Korea knocking out North Korean missile system sites, well, right there does kind of eliminate the threat of North Korea altogether. The reason being is, again, North Korea does not have, they have a missile that perhaps does have the range to get to North America. They even have nukes that will explode on where they need them to explode. The problem you have is they can only do this trick once or twice. Then after that, there's nothing left to North Korea. Like the North Koreans, maybe some of them are that stupid and brainwashed, but most of them, I think, do understand that they have no chance in hell at winning a war. Even with their mighty leader, Kim Jong-un, with his pudgy fist, favorite guy. But yeah, but the idea of the agitation of it, of South Korea saying, yeah, we're going to go ahead and preemptively strike you. Well, you know what? They should just keep that plan secret. Here's why. Because now you're going to rile them up again. You know, I mean, they're always looking for that. You know, it's kind of like that kid that comes up to you in school with try to give you a wet willy, put the finger in your ear, and he doesn't touch you. He doesn't touch you, and you turn around, you smack him, and he looks at the teacher. He hit me for no reason, but he's been provoking you for 3 days. Well, that's what we're doing with North Korea. That's what we're doing with Russia. That's what we're doing with China. So when they do snap, you know, like it's when they finally had enough. That said, again, we have to consider that. I don't think the North Korean regime is that stupid. I think they just talk the talk for propaganda's sake because of the people that, like, I don't think Kim Jong-un actually believes what he says. The reason why is simple. He was educated in Switzerland and stuff like that. Now, is he over-entitled? Is he an idiot? Is he a dictator? Is he a bad guy? Should he be taken out? Yeah, absolutely. But the thing is, it's very simple. The people at the upper echelons, they know the difference. They know that communism is a failed system. But they've got everybody below them, especially using the North Korean weather lady. It's totally awesome. I'm not going to do it here because too many people. Then they'd really think I was nuts talking to my phone, doing a North Korean weather lady prediction. A nice Corvette. Nice vet. There we go. So yeah, no North Korean weather lady predictions today. Yeah, there we go. But anyway, bottom line, yeah, like the propaganda reaches the people, but it doesn't reach the, you know, the upper echelons. They know, you know, like that's the thing. They know the difference, so they know how far they can and cannot push it. And I don't think North Korea has really done anything over the line to the point where they've actually jeopardized their own safety. They talk a big talk. They put on a display, like it takes them like 2 weeks to set up a ballistic missile. You know what I mean? Like Russia can launch 4,500 in 18 seconds. You know what I mean? So who's bluffing, right? Who's bluffing? So that type of thing. So when you're looking at it like that, it does change things in perspective that North Korea is simply not a threat, really, to the outside world. Maybe to regionally, they could probably do a bit of damage with their 50 submarines, whatever. Their ballistic missile subs may get lucky and take out an aircraft carrier or something like that. I really don't think they would fare out that well. Like in the long term, obviously not. I think most people agree with that. So why are they so important? Well, they're important for a couple of reasons. Number one, they are the useful idiot to China. The North Korean regime was always kind of under the Chinese thumb. Now, how much are they under the thumb now? I don't know, because Kim Jong-un is a bit of a, you know, I mean, he took out his uncle and his aunt, who were pretty much the ambassadors to China in the sense of, okay, we're going to put you in in charge as a puppet. You know what I mean? Like, and he knew this. So he had them taken out. So that's why you've even had China tell the North Koreans, mellow out, or we're going to smack you around ourselves. You're making it dangerous for us now. Like, when we want you to agitate, we'll let you agitate. But till that time, like right now, China's doing what Russia's doing in a lot of ways. They're trying to de-escalate to a degree, but they also have to show that they're not pushovers, right? So it's kind of that catch-22. If you don't respond to the U.S. provoking, they're going to move right in, and you will have nothing to do about it. You'll be twice as vulnerable in the long run. So they have to respond somehow. North Korea is one response they can use. Problem is North Korea is more of a useful idiot to China in the sense that they can use North Korea as the distraction. Basically get the United States worried about North Korea when there's really no worry. I'm pretty sure most of the U.S. brass, well, then again, you never know. Some of them are kind of stupid. Obama's picks are not exactly what I would say were people I'd want to go to war with, or let alone try to plan out a war. Because again, anybody that, you never underestimate your enemies, because you never know. As bad, the biggest con could be North Korea. Think about it this way. We look at their army. It's all 1950s Soviet kind of copy stuff. I mean, they got their tactical rocket tractors. Those things are awesome. I love those things. Okay, so you see that on the parade, and you see their KN-1 or whatever that ballistic missile is there. The paper mache looking one, the one with the screws and the bolts missing on it. Yeah, they've done that before, but you never know. Somewhere deep within the country, they could have the latest and greatest, newest versions of Dongfang 21s and Dongfang 11s. They could have all the latest and greatest Chinese hardware, which is not too bad. They could have hypersonic missiles. They could have all that stuff. It wouldn't be theirs. It would be under the control of the Chinese. But you wouldn't know it was there. That's where the con would be. It's like, while you're looking at it, like if they were to sacrifice North Korea, they would say, okay, come on in, wipe them out, and then just clobber the shitballs at you with all this hidden military stuff that you wouldn't, yeah, North Korea does have a MiG-29 or two. I think they got like 8 of them or 9 of them, whatever they got. And these are the older MiG-29s, so they're clearly not, but they could do things like send in, the MiG-35s or something like that, paint them up as North Korean and not say nothing, you know what I mean? And all of a sudden, hey, now you've got really good pilots in there. Maybe send in some Chinese pilots or whatever. Or, whatever they might do. It's hard to say. They could do it that way. And then that way they could take the upper hand in a kind of... how they would use this move and why they would use this move would be, again, it would be subjective to a few things. The first thing is they would have to use it. China would send North Korea to war before the United States gets to go to war with China. Why? Because, again, they're the useful idiots. So, okay, China will use North Korea. They'll stay out of it. And the Chinese like to do this. They like to kind of stay under the radar, stay out of it as much as they can. And if what they could do is get North Korea to fight NATO or whatever with all these, and just like back channel supply them with all these high-tech weapons, and, with the North Korean propaganda, they're like ISIS. They'll take credit for anything, right? It's like if it looks like it's a win and it can make them look good, they'll use the propaganda, which again goes against them. They don't realize it. Well, maybe the upper echelons do, but then again, that's where the useful idiot status of North Korea comes into question. Did Kim Jong-un? I mean, he has knocked off, Obama military purges. Basically, you're fired, you're fired, you're fired. Kim Jong-un military purges are basically, let's have a parade and we're going to execute a couple of guys in front of everybody. I think that's what they do there. It's just crazy. Yeah, so if maybe the North Koreans are playing their own game, who knows? I really don't think they have that much control. I do believe China has most of the control over North Korea. But yeah, we'd have to wait to see. But yeah, China would definitely use North Korea as a distraction to invade the South, which would to give China time to maybe, if they could get lucky, they would use it to strategically take out, say, U.S. warships. And that's a big threat. Everybody else in the region is not really that much of a threat to them, even other NATO members. Maybe Japan, Philippines to a degree because of the defending an island type of thing. Australia to a degree because of the distance. But in the long run, there's really nothing to stop a Chinese Navy in that area. There's nothing to stop them at all, other than the U.S. I wouldn't say nobody could stop them. I mean, again, if all those regions band together, yeah, China's got a fight on its hand. But on the other hand, too, is if they were going to go to a fight, they're definitely going to take out the most threatening things first. And they've got these new satellite beams and stuff like that for communication that they're putting up that are basically unhackable and stuff like that. So the Chinese are preparing for the war. They're getting ready for it. How good is their stuff? I don't know. I think it's like anything. Nothing, whether we're talking U.S., Russian, or Chinese, or anything that NATO owns, is never as good as advertised. Like the F-22 is never as good as advertised. Parts still fall off the Sukhoi 30s. You know what I mean? Like that type of thing. They're never as good as advertised. Their maintenance problems. There's this problem. There's that problem. There's glitches in the radars. All that type of stuff. But some stuff is a little more obvious than others. Now, as far as the F-35 being ready, combat ready, or one version of it being combat ready, well, that's what they're telling us up here in Canada. So we stay with the program. I don't think Trudeau's going to jump ship on the F-35. Yeah, he got elected on the idea of this fair fighter competition that he was going to do, which is what a government should have done in the first place. But the thing is, no, he's not going to change. Like, again, there's no difference really between Trudeau and Harper in a lot of ways. Like, they still work for the same Anglo-American Empire banking system and stuff like that. That's still the same system, that type of thing. So, anyway, we'll have to wait and see how that plays out. Yeah, so for South Korea to take out all the North Korean sites, that would be something interesting. Next is over there in Britain. We had the new Prime Minister come out when asked point blank, would you use nukes? Not under what circumstances would you use nukes, but just would you use the nukes if you had to? She said, yeah. yeah, no problem. Didn't even hesitate. And when you look at it, it's like, okay, well, shouldn't that be a bit longer of a discussion? See, what they're looking for is the loyalty and stuff like that to the regime and whatever of the banking system, that when we tell you to go to war and launch on Russia, you're going to launch on Russia, basically. And this new Prime Minister, I don't know much about her yet, but I'm pretty sure she's not going to be any better than Cameron. They usually never are when they're kind of just like appointed like that. Well, I don't know if she was appointed or elected. I was away that week, so I don't know exactly what happened. You guys can fill me in, so I don't want to put out misinformation on that. But I would say new boss, same as the old boss. But just the idea that when they're asking her in their parliament, just like how quickly, like just no hesitation. Yeah, sure. Yeah, yes, I will use nukes. Shouldn't you, just adding at least put on a bit of a show. Only under the circumstances of we're being attacked and in defensive purposes only. At least say something. At least bullshit a bit or something. It's like right now Britons have got to be thinking. I know exactly what they're thinking. They're thinking, oh, well, that was interesting. Oh fuck, that's what they're thinking. It's like, she's ready to just launch off nukes as if it was like the 4th of July or something, or the 1st of July. That type of thing, like an Independence Day. Yeah, sure. Yeah, just launch those. Let's ring in the Chinese New Year with a few nukes. Why not? Yeah. So that said, the Brits, their military is like anything. It's always been kind of. It's been a bit cash starved, stuff like that. It's not a huge military. One thing I do like about the Brits is they are very innovative with their stuff. Sometimes they make things a little more complicated than they need to be, but they do, for the most part, build really good things like Eurofighter. I mean, Eurofighter, yes, was a joint effort, kind of how the F-35 was supposed to be a joint effort, but the difference is the Eurofighter actually worked. As good as advertised? Yes and no. A Eurofighter does have a few problems. It is a bit heavy for what it is. It's, 40,000 pounds empty. However, the thing can get off the ground in 5 seconds, which is pretty damn impressive. I don't know of another combat jet that can do that. Now, with a combat load, I don't know. Does it need some upgrades? Well, Eurofighters are getting old too, and what have you. But they are a good jet. There's no doubt about that. They'll serve the purpose of the RAF and the German Luftwaffe, and I think Spain and Italy use them as well. Everybody's kind of, nobody's really saying anything bad about the Eurofighter. It's just, like anything, you have to keep up with the times. So if you're building these things, you really have to make sure that you can maintain them and you can have enough of them. That's where the problem with Eurofighter is. The same thing with the F-22. You just can't build enough of them. So, when you think about the MiG-21, okay, when Eurofighter came out, it was basically still going with the idea of taking out MiG-29s and Sukhoi 27s and stuff like that, also as a multi-role fighter. Now, like all multi-role fighters, there's always handicaps. With Eurofighter, it is maneuverable, but I wouldn't say it's as maneuverable as their Russian counterparts. Yeah, they'll shoot down MiG-21s in the handfuls, but the problem is for every one Eurofighter, there's probably 100 plus to 1 MiG-21s. Not that the Russians are really using MiG-21s anymore, but just as an example. There was 13,000 MiG-21s, and some of them are still getting upgrades, believe it or not. They keep these things in the air because you can fly a MiG-21 100 hours without doing any maintenance to it. Like it's really ridiculously how simple these airplanes are. They'll get the job done in third world countries, that type of thing. That said, they're putting newer radars and stuff like that. So you got an old airframe that's simple to maintain, maybe not as powerful, whatever. But you put a modern electronics in there and radar and stuff like that. It could be lethal. Now, why is that important? Well, because there was 13,000 of those made. In Sukhoi 30s, which is a complete technological marvel over the, where's the trail here? It's all muddy. It rained here the other day, so I'm in the mud. I don't want to be in the mud. So you got this technological marvel of a machine that is cheaper than an F-15, is capable of doing all kinds of stuff. It's a long-range fighter, bomber / escort, whatever you want the Su-30 to be, it can be that for you. And the other thing about it is, there's there's a few hundred of those things out there. Eurofighters, there's really not that many Eurofighters out there. So that's just an example of some of the problems. Same with the Challenger tanks. There's not that many of them out there. You don't have that many Eurofighters. You don't have that many Challengers. The Warriors, whatever their APCs are. So the Britons don't really have a lot in comparison to the Russians. And the reason why this is important is because they're basically right now putting their full doctrine on going with the idea of taking on Russia alone. Yes, I said that. I had the same reaction when I heard that too. That they want to basically be on par with the Russians. So they either, if they have, because again, Britain isn't really that big of a country, not only geographically, but just people-wise, to the point where for them to match Russia on par with equipment, they either have to build extremely cheap equipment, like a crap load of MiG-21s or something like that, to match the numbers, which would do them no good, because the Russians are now building Su-30s and Su-35s and Pak Fa-50s, MiG-35s, etc., which is a derivative of the MiG-29, and like the Russians are now, they're in that status of basically building top quality fighter jets. Maybe still crude in some areas, but for the most part, they're building top quality fighter jets. At last count, I don't know how many they've sold off, but they had at least 600 MiG-29s. The way the Russian Air Force was designed in the 90s hasn't really changed that much. It's changed a bit because the equipment's changed. They got about 180 Su-34s, which will be a big problem for NATO. These are basically the Su-24 on steroids. Out of the 6,500 Su-24s, there's still 1,500 of those in service. Now, a Eurofighter will fly circles around one of those, sure, but they're not going to be able to take on these things in the droves. And now you need to rely on the Tornadoes. Again, Britain doesn't have that many Tornadoes in service. They probably have more than everybody else, but they don't have very much. And if you know what the stats are, I know some of you guys are British military, so tell us what you got. But again, the point here is to match, Tornadoes to Su-34s and Su-24s, to match Eurofighters to Su-35s, MiG-29s, Su-27s. I mean, they're going to be outnumbered 50 to 1. Like there's at least 1,600 Su-27 Sukhoi variants. Little Suzuki Savage or whatever. So right there, you got a problem. Now, one of the best fighters I think Britain ever had, although it was more of an attack aircraft, was the Harrier. I don't know why they ever got rid of that for the freaking F-35. The Harrier worked. Very proven. Yeah, maybe not the most inexpensive thing to fly. Very cool airplane. I got to sit in one before. Well, I got to sit in the GR3 and the AV-8A. The AV-8A is the American version. And what I got to say about those airplanes is they're probably like the most commonsensical, if that's a word, attack airplane you could ever design. I'm going to go down here and sit down here. It's freaking hot out here today. So, yeah, they'll have to pull a lot of stuff out of mothballs, but again, now you've got older equipment going up against newer Russian equipment. So, and Navy-wise, well, no comparison there. British Navy, you know, again, they're good pilots, they're good sailors, just not enough of them. The same problem we have here in Canada, there's just not enough of us. The Russians are, you know, way ahead in the sense that they've went from 2010 when they had a 1 million man army, and this is something to consider, that they now have a 4 or just about a 4 million man army in only 6 years. And they're not, you know, that's a big leap. You know, that's a big leap to go on par with that. Obviously, the Britons can't, they don't have the budget to do that, especially at their cost. Like, the Russians don't build stuff expensive. They build it, you've got these engineers making minimum wage, but they're doing what they like to do. So when you're looking at it like that, it is a totally different. I don't know how their generals came up with that, but that's what they are. You know, that's what they're talking about anyway. I don't know how they pull it off economically. You know, again, the British economy isn't, you know, the most, you know, staggering economy out there either. How would they pull this off? There's just no way for them to pull this off. Okay, now I've only got a little bit of snippet on this one. I don't know too much about it, but it looks like Putin was pulling out of the peace talks for the Ukraine, which makes sense because there is no peace talks really. It's just, you know, it's a coup, right? So it's like, I guess he's just tired of putting on that show. And over there in Syria, there's the Russians are talking about actually putting boots on the ground so that they don't lose all the gains, because the rebels have been making a few strides, not really pushing anybody back, but they don't want to lose the ground they've already got, right? So, and a few weeks ago, Bashar al-Assad said it best that, you know, ISIS is going to fall in the next couple of weeks. Watch for the terrorist attacks. There was again another knife attack or something like that, this time in Switzerland. It's just, you know, never ends, right? So, that type of thing. Sorry, just a little bit of a distraction here. That type of thing. Next one goes. Yes, I would like. You know, I don't want to be called a perv or something, so I can't show you the nice looking girl though. I'll go down this way. Anyway, okay. So the next one is. This one goes. Yeah, to the Ukraine again. This one is basically. This one's kind of a nerving one. It's a group called the Surveillance Saboteurs or something like. It's a weird name, like something like along that lines, right? And basically, it was 20 guys on the Russian border from the Ukraine trying to plant explosives. This could be an FSB ploy too. You never know. The Russians do fight dirty. We know this. But that said, the Russians have said this could put us into full-scale war with the Ukraine. That, I think, the reason why I don't think this is a Russian ploy is because that's what they're trying to avoid. That's the whole coup, was to put Russia into a full-scale war with Ukraine, to wear down the Russian troops so NATO could sweep in after. Again, Eastern Europe has been slated for destruction by the Anglo-American Empire, basically, so that, you know, while Russia's fighting Finland and Poland and Hungary and you know, Slovakia and Romania and Ukraine and wherever else, Lithuania and all that, by the time NATO comes in, the Russians have got nothing left. Now, the FSB basically caught this, and they basically arrested 20 guys. I think one Russian guy was killed. Pretty crazy stuff. Now, in response, the Russians have sent, you guessed it, and they've been moving stuff by train, which makes sense. That's nothing new. Moving heavy military equipment by train has always been something been going on. That's how you move tanks, you know what I mean? Tanks get like 10 gallons to the mile type of thing at best, you know, so it's like, okay, well, can I go down this way? Too many people. I'll go the other way. A whole bunch of people on the beach. I'm at the beach, so I'm at West Broken. So yeah, so now, last week or whatever, I didn't get a chance to report on. There was a whole bunch of, looks like Topol-Ms and everything, and again, Russia said its response to these kind of, if you know, people keep up on these kind of responses, i.e. the Ukraine, U.S. military, or, you know, Anglo-American Empire kind of things, they could fully respond. They show, you know, Topol-Ms as the response to these. But these little excursions is more for sabotage and everything. So the Russians aren't going to go to war because a few people get killed on a border town. So they're not going to do that. They're not that short-sighted. They never have been. They never will be. So, bottom line, they've got now attack helicopters going to be flying up and down and increasing presence on that area there too, for sure. And nice day on the beach. Still no swimming. Too much bird poop in the water. So I'm at a beach and you can't swim. That sucks. But anyway, so yeah, so they're basically, in a nutshell, going to have, I guess, probably Ka-50s, whether it's the Hawkum, the werewolf, or the black shark, Ka-52 alligators. These are their kind of more high-tech stuff. I don't know if they're going to have any Hawkum MIL-28s there or anything like that. So they're going to have a few things like that out there. And they're going to be flying around on that border in Ukraine, as well as a whole bunch of barrage of tanks, and you guessed it, they're all heading there too. So it's a nice day today. But anyway, yeah, so that's pretty much what I got. The more interesting one is the border. The border of Ukraine really does worry me more. Because what's probably going to happen is... After you, that's okay. I'm just blogging. Yeah. So what's more of a concern is the build-up in the Crimea. We know there's nukes there. We know there's... they got like Popol M there, whatever. But now you have more of a possibility of a clash right on the border. So with attack helicopters or whatever. Now, obviously there is military tanks from the Ukrainian Kiev 1 and Kiev 2 that are moving around in that area, as well as the Azov battalion. I mean, these guys haven't left, right? They're still there. But this also gives Russia more excuse to put a tighter death grip on Ukraine economically. I mean, Ukraine right now economically is already destroyed anyway. But the case in point is now what they can do is really tighten the screws. So the Russians, they're going to have their border completely locked up anyway. So obviously, a handful of guys can't sneak across the border. They've got it locked up pretty good. But it also shows how tense things are. Again, even if you were to measure towards the Cuban Missile Crisis, like this is really should be all over the mainstream news, but of course it's not going to be because, again, the one system, right? And we always have to look at the world. Hot out here. Yeah, some pretty girls back on the beach, I'll say that. I get a bit distracted while I do that. That's how dedicated I am to my job. Pretty girls on the beach and I'm still blogging. So the case in point is this. You now have a situation where, I'm going to sit down, get some water. It's freaking hot. Didn't expect it to get that hot that quick. Where the Russians are basically, twice as paranoid because they now have stuff coming across their border, which I think was Plan A in the first place. I mean, it's pretty openly admitted on even, that regime change was done in the Ukraine by the United States. There's nobody that can really deny it. That is the U.S. foreign policy / Greater Israel Project foreign policy. The U.S. foreign policy is the Israeli policy and vice versa. It's one system. The banking system is the media system. The media system is the education system. The education system is the military system. The military system is the economy. The economy, and it goes and it goes and it goes. And it's all linked. So it's all one system. And remember, the United States has a death and debt-based economy. I keep repeating this. Max Kaiser said it. I think it was so elegantly put as that they can't stop this stuff. If they do, the economy implodes. But with Ukraine, it's kind of a weird thing that they've got going on, where they're beefing up Poland, not the Ukraine. So Ukraine really has been pretty much forsaken by all sides. However, all the Russians have to do is sit and wait. They're going to get it eventually. That will be the East Ukraine, West Ukraine, pretty much like I've been saying is going to happen, pretty much happen. And the problems with that, just blogging. Yeah. The problem with that is, obviously the Ukrainian people are going to suffer the most. So, with that said, right now you don't really hear as much rhetoric on the news about Ukraine. I think the Anglo-American Empire is kind of, they're going back to something else. They're going to try to come at it in a different way. They never stop, but it's always an ongoing tug of war here. But they're like, well, we can't get the Russians have it. The Russians have it. There's whether you like it or not, the Russians have it. But the Russians saw this coming 5 million miles away. Again, they all they have to do is sit and wait. Again, not that I trust Putin. I know I got a lot of Putin fans out there too. Russia's just as corrupt as anyone else, anywhere else, and in some ways even more. But government-wise. But like anything, the difference is that they're actually on the winning side on a lot of things, because all they have to do to make the Anglo-American Empire look bad is tell the truth. It's the weirdest thing. Like, they just have to expose the truth. And, you know, that kind of gives them an upper hand. It's the weirdest thing. Whereas on the Anglo-American Empire, all they keep doing is lying and lying and lying. I mean, and with the elections going on with Hillary Clinton, and just lie after lie, and, you know, they got all these people now kind of dropping dead, you know, around the Clintons and stuff like that. So people are just seeing it for what it is. But the thing is that the Russians are not going to be any better off in the long run to maintain this without lying themselves, right? Like, they have to kind of lie themselves, because if they don't, what are they got to lie about? Well, other things on their end. I haven't been following the Russian side quite as much because I live over here. The missiles are going to be flying my way too, you know what I mean? So I'm more of concerned about what we do about our politicians. Let the Russian people deal with their politicians how they see fit. That said, at some point, yes, these politicians, right now, again, panic rooms, doomsday bunkers, all that, they're buying this stuff in the droves. They really are terrified. They really are terrified. Now, some of them aren't, because they're complete, utter psychopaths. But obviously, you know, I think most people are starting to get it. You know, you have bank after bank that keeps getting bailed out, that keeps failing, and they keep saying that, you know, it's like too big to fail. Oh, if we don't bail out the banks, the whole world will collapse. And in some ways, they're right. But the thing is we can never recover until we let the banks collapse. But they would rather, they don't want to be blamed for it. So the goal is, if we can go to war, then we can let the economy collapse. Now, the problem with this is very simple. The Russians, for them to win the big prize, they just have to stay out of a war. You know, same with the Chinese. They just have to stay out of the war, let the United States collapse on itself. And I think the Russian endgame is the same as the Chinese. When the civil uprisings and civil wars, race wars, whatever you want to talk about in the States, I mean, right now you got Black Lives Matter attacking people if they're white, driving around in cars. I forget where their protest was. And again, this is George Soros funded stuff. So all these people, like, I mean, their names are known now. I don't know what they're going to do, because really, do they think that the legal system is going to protect them that much longer? Like, you know, like, yeah, like, I mean, in the sense of, yeah, they'll never go to jail, most likely legally. I mean, look at Hillary Clinton. She should have went to jail, 4 times last week? You know what I mean? That type of thing. So yeah, it'll protect them that way. But all these people that protect these people are the same as traitors. They're going to be lynched as well. Like, they must realize this. I'm not making any threats. I'm just like, think of it logically. So self-preservation tells me, be a whistleblower. But whistleblower is dangerous. I get it. Yeah. But at some point, like, when things really do start falling apart, it's going to be one of those things that people are going to be blaming everybody for everything, right? But more importantly, the people who know what's going on, call them spooks with a conscience, call them hellhounds, call them vigilantes, whatever you want to refer to them as, they will be coming out in massive droves, kind of behind the scenes. Very 007 James Bond stuff. I think that's taking place now. If you're looking at watch the world elites, watch people around the world elites just dropping dead. And we've seen, 3 people drop dead around Hillary Clinton past week. To me, I still say yes, she's going to win the election. But if she can maintain, if her and her oligarchy can maintain the illusion, if they can't maintain the illusion, it all falls apart. So there is a possibility of a wild card there. Now, when she wins the election, I think it shows the sham that the system is. Yes, you've got the idiots that will vote for Hillary Clinton because they are that stupid. And yes, there's the people that are ignorant. And I do separate stupidity from ignorance. People who don't follow channels like this have no idea how corrupt these people really are. But subconsciously, they know. Most of them know. So at that point, you have to ask yourself, are you going along with it just to keep your job? And if so, then you're a traitor to your own country. It's that simple. It really is that simple. And what do you think the penalty for treason is going to be in a pitchfork revolution? Again, not making any threats, but just think about it historically. Anybody that was on the side of Group A or B, and history always being written by the winners, what happens to Group B, the ones that lose? Like, what happens to them? What happens to the people that supported them because they were just following orders or whatever? Or I was just doing my job. Well, no, technically you weren't. The FBI agent that pretty much, or the CIA agent, whichever douchebag it was, that gave Hillary Clinton, or the Department of Justice guy that gave Hillary Clinton a pass on the email thing. Saying, well, there's no punishment really. So we did all this trial, cost the taxpayers a fortune, proved that this woman was a criminal, but because we like her and we're donating to her campaign, which, why is a justice system donating anything to a campaign? They're taking taxpayers' money and donating it. Government's donating to government. You can't do that. I mean, really. Yeah, so these people, what happens to them? Well, I did it because you're a traitor. It's that simple. So what happens when there's vigilante justice everywhere and people know names and pictures? This is where we're different from World War II, where most people didn't know what the Nazi war criminals looked like. And there were, like anything, a lot of things that, yes, may have been fabricated about World War II. There's no doubt about that. And yes, like all wars, they're bankers' wars. But at the end of the day, tracking those people down took years. Now you can get pick a prominent oligarch and read their profile online. Now, yeah, but the system will go down. You don't think people have already thought about that, of not like taking names, numbers, pictures, making files on these people? Of course they are. I mean, that's what these people do for a living. Now, I'm talking about active duty law enforcement and military. Now, listening to Phil Rhodes on Next News here, again, by the time you see this video, it'll be probably a few days old, but he was talking about civil war in the United States, and something I've been talking about as well. Like it's going to be a slaughter fest when that kicks off. Now, as big as the U.S. military is, there's no way they can handle no country can handle a populist uprising. Period. Doesn't matter how many CT cameras they have. Stones trump CT cameras. It doesn't matter how many bullets you have in your tank or in your gun or whatever, or in your MRAPs, whatever. It doesn't matter. Those things run out of gas. They run out of bullets. They run out of all these things, and because of that, you're going to be getting, like anything, they're going to get you on the reload. It's a human wave that'll be coming for these people. So you could either be against the people, or you could try to save this system that's really not savable anyway. It's going down in front of us. I mean, really, if you look at these World War III updates that I've been doing for years now, you're really seeing the escalation into a major conflict. You're seeing that. And of course, Obama, the Peace Prize winner, has just started, put more boots on the ground in another country, over there in Africa. So again, yeah, endless wars. Why? Because that is the U.S. economy. Now, most of the people aren't for this, but one thing Phil Rhodes said is the country is so divided now that all these Trotskyite, Marxist, Leninist, Maoist, communist type people that love Hillary Clinton and all that, they have this illusion that they're going to be able to, and most communists think this way, is violent revolution. Now, cultural Marxism teaches violent revolution by basically tear it down. Frankfurt School of Thought, tear down, deconstruct, and question everything from the perspective of a cultural Marxist or a Marxist in general. And that's the way many think. But the problem, what they don't realize is when they're thinking as overthrow the right-wingers or whatever, because that's who they've been demonized to go after, right? Now, you'd say, yeah, but the other side's going to do this. No, you really, look, the reason why you don't have the so-called deadly right-wingers that you keep hearing about on the DHS terrorist watch lists and stuff like that, constitutionalists and religious people, gun owners, all that Second Amendment people. The reason why you haven't seen a big uprising from them is because they don't cast the first stone. Libertarians don't cast first stones. They turn the other cheek until it's time not to turn the other cheek. Now, the problem with these communists is they're always casting stones. They're always agitating, Saul Alinsky-style tactics, useful idiots, whatever they might be. I used to refer to them as communist students. People call them social justice warriors now, and the 99% of them are really just a bunch of babbling idiots, and they're really not a threat to you at all. But where the problem is your real revolutionary 1919 kind of mentality, Bolshevism kind of communists, they do like to burn things. They do like to break things. They do like to destroy. Their whole makeup is nihilism. Tear it all down. Reconstruct it in my name. But they never get to the reconstruct it in our image. They always get the tear it down, and they get addicted to tearing it down. That's why you guys like George Soros, which always funds death and destruction. Black Lives Matter, neo-Nazis in the Ukraine to overthrow a country and pick another country. Anywhere George Soros money goes, death and destruction follows. So now the problem with most of these useful idiots, and I think Philip Rhodes says it best, he goes, these people, if they, they've got to be careful what they wish for. When they think that they're just going to come in and run out, like right now, it's sociably, maybe not up here in Canada. Like up here in Canada, we're not going through the same crazy stuff yet as you are in the States. But we're a different country in a lot of ways. Although, you know, we have a lot of similarities culturally and stuff like that. There are a lot of, we're not as divided up here yet. But we, you know, our situation isn't quite as bad as the States economically yet. So we're heading there, but we're just 8 to 10 years out. Same with Europe, we're like 8 to 10 years behind their problems. But we're doing the same things, we're just doing it slower. But the thing is with these, I'll just finish up with these, you know, these communist revolutionaries. When they start attacking right-wing establishments, which they're in the early throes of it, you see it with Black Lives Matter attacking white people all over the place. You see it with these, I'm not blaming all black people or anything like that. I'm not doing that. It is what it is, so I'm just a messenger, so call me racist, bigot, whatever you want. It doesn't really matter because it's happening. You know, you can call me racist, bigot, but all I have to do is look at the body count, you know, draw your conclusion from there. At some point, there's going to be a pushback. Now, I do agree with Philip Rhodes on the idea that, yes, these Trotskyite, useful idiot, communist student types are going to get their asses massively kicked by a very, very heavily armed right-wing populace or libertarian populace or nationalist populace. They're going to be killed. They're going to be lynched. And they don't even see it coming, but that's the whole thing about nihilism. You don't see your end coming, right? It's Emperor Nero effect. You can't do that. So with that said, that could lead to a different type of regime on the opposite side, to an extremely authoritarian right-wing regime that would be just as bad as any communism or whatever. So obviously civil war would be put on the map big time. Now the leftists, they just scream and yell. They're never going to be a military threat, but divided-wise, they could be, the long con could be the secession movements throughout the United States, and then China can come in and buy up each state, pick them off one at a time over the next 200 years. So that could be the long con that's going on right now. But that can't happen until everything is deconstructed. This is where Hillary Clinton comes in. Why? That's what Saul Alinsky's agitation, she's an agitator just like Obama was. Like, there's no difference between Obama and Clinton, really. Different oligarchy, but same boss, same plan, that type of thing. So I'm going to leave it at that. There's always stuff I'm missing, but anyway, I'll leave it at that. So if you like this kind of content, please consider making a donation channel. Links down below. Thank you so much, everybody. G'day, hi, and welcome. All right, I'm still in town. I'm 2 days, T-2, to get the frickin' motorcycle course done. Hopefully it won't rain on Wednesday and I'll get it done. But the show must go on, and I got to still keep up to my, my work, so to speak, I guess. So I took down a bunch of notes this time. Yeah, see how much more organized I'm getting? I got like this loose piece of paper with writing on it. Now, the big thing is, can I decode my own handwriting? I don't know where to start here. I guess I'll start on, yeah. I don't have a lot here, but it's ongoing stuff, so we'll keep it going. So I guess I'll start with the 50 million, I believe it was 50 million, U.S. aid going to Lebanon, basically buying weapons for somebody. Not exactly sure who yet. It's obviously not going to be going to Hezbollah because they're sided with the Iranians and whatever, and they're anti-Israel, so that type of thing. So I do know that Lebanon is a bit of a tug-of-war there, what's going on between the Communist Lebanese Army, which works with the Syrian Arab Army, and Hezbollah as well. They work on one side, and then of course I guess you got other factions on the other side. So who's in Lebanon? That would be getting money from the U.S. to get the weapons. I don't know. And I guess there's things like artillery guns and stuff like that, because I guess not enough weapons have fallen into the hands of ISIS yet. So you're going to put more in there, right? So that type of thing. So that's what's going on there. And oh yeah, it's a Russian name, and like most Russian names, I can't pronounce it. It is the Chief of Staff, Sergei Lavinov, if I said it right. Basically, this guy didn't want to become an oligarch or whatever, and he said, "Fire me after so many years," and stuff like that. So Putin decided to do that. And Putin gave him praise and stuff like that. And this guy again is one of chief of staff, so he's military advisor and stuff like that, and pretty high up there. So again, a completely different approach to Obama, where Obama has basically fired more U.S. personnel than any president in history, and pretty much basically weeded the garden and did a complete purge of the military is what Obama done. Now, Putin has been doing that too. A little while back, I was talking about how they got rid of men that would not push the button. So the Russians, they're serious when it comes to when it goes down. They know at some point this is going to go down, so they need the most dedicated guys possible. But you got to watch out, because that's where you get your psychos as well. Yeah, yes, I'll push button. Today? We push it today? You know, like, how about tomorrow? We do it tomorrow. Tomorrow afternoon. Yes, we have nuclear war now. You know, can we do it today? You know, it's like, no, you have to wait till the war starts. Why wait? You know, it's like that's the problem when you get these guys that are a little bit over eager to please comrade, comrade, commandant. Yeah. Next to that, Israeli rocket systems are going to Vietnam. They're putting them in place with the threat that they are going to take out North Korean. If you know where Vietnam is, it's a long way from North Korea, and their goal is to take out North Korean missiles and stuff like that, and missile sites. That means their missiles have to cross Chinese airspace. Think of how insane that is. Now, the weird thing about Vietnam is just the idea that it wasn't all that long ago that the U.S. was blowing the shitballs out of Vietnam. But now they're the best thing since sliced bread, right? So you see how these allies change and stuff like that. There's no real loyalty or real principle on U.S. foreign policy. It's who's the best for us at the time, right? Because usually once you declare a country an enemy and you go to war with them, you pretty much keep them as an enemy. You know what I mean? Like that's you might resume ties, but you don't start giving them military aid and stuff like that. And of course, why would Israeli rockets be going to Vietnam, right? Why is Israel even involved in this, right? So again, war is a racket. That's the main theme. So that's something to definitely keep on. Now, the Russians have also, just got to watch where I'm walking here so I don't get smucked by something, got warships in the Mediterranean, but they've now got these missiles on the warships. I can't remember the exact designation of the missile. And like most Russian missiles, they're very versatile in the sense of we can blow the crap balls out of something, or we can really blow the crap balls out of something. So nuclear, non-nuclear, that type of thing. They obviously have this in the Mediterranean with all the U.S. warships going back and forth, provoking Russia. Again, there is real no case for U.S. warships to be in the Mediterranean. There really is no case. They're not going to... ISIS isn't floating around in little rowboats or anything like that. And, there's really no case for it. So it is clearly just to keep provoking in the Mediterranean. So the Russians are definitely stepping up their grade here and saying, okay, yes, but our warships may possibly have nukes on them. And we know that you've got, again, in the Crimea, you got Tupolems coming in a whole, and I'll get to the Ukraine. I'll save the Ukraine for the last because there's so much to cover in the Ukraine this time. Again, to keep up with it all. But yeah, so that's definitely a statement when your warships, the cruise missiles, are nuclear capable. That's definitely a statement. So the Russians are saying, yes, you can come here, but it won't work out well for you. So that type of thing. Next to that, the military-industrial complex in the States, surprise, surprise, are asking for more funding. They need more funding. Well, here's the thing, okay? You have a lot of the U.S. military that is in crisis and stuff. Now, if they, who are they funding for? Are they funding for the U.S. military or funding everybody else? Pick one, right? So if the U.S. wasn't funding all, giving Vietnam missiles and giving South Korea and all these, the Philippines, if they weren't arming up everybody there, they would have more than enough for their own military. They will spread themselves, well, they already have kind of spread themselves too thin in the South Pacific, in the South China Sea and all that. But it's kind of like this is, this idea of we're going to arm everybody, but everybody's going to be armed so thinly. It looks like a massive buildup, but when you look at it from a strategic point of view, yes, it is a massive buildup, but everybody is really spread apart. If you have, missile system here and then 400 miles away, you have another missile system, you're really starting to spread yourself thin. You might have an overlap there, but you have a lot of gaps for the enemy to come in and take out your systems. And if they hit one system at a time kind of thing, it'll crumble faster than it can move. So I think that's how the Russians are going to play it, and I think that's definitely how the Chinese are going to play it. I still say the Chinese are going to most likely do an island hopping war when they do get into it, and the rhetoric from the Chinese in the past 2 weeks has been pretty stepping up and getting pretty, there's going to be a lot more rhetoric before they just say, fuck off or we're going to war. There's a lot more that's going to happen. We know this. But there's a lot of accidental things that can happen too. And again, the more this stuff is spread out, the more potential for a Kursk-style incident can happen, right? So these are the things that we have to watch out for. So, next to that, yeah, so South Korea has also said that they're getting